Hello, what's up everyone? My name is Wes, and in case this is your first time here at Interactive English, we are all about helping you practice and improve your English skills. And today, this is a lesson that many people have requested us to do. We are going to talk about all 12 verb tenses. That's right, I am going to cover all 12 verb tenses in this lesson, but not only that, I want you guys to practice your skills, which is what this is all about. So I want you to write sentences throughout this lesson. Write sentences in the chat and practice these verb tenses. And even if you are watching this later, I want you to use the comment section as though it were a piece of paper and write sentences there and always practice, 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 practice. That is what these interactive lessons are all about. So I want to give a quick shout out. Hello, Lolly, Luna, Susanna, Min, Yelvin, Saeed, Angela, welcome. Thank you for joining me today. I will give some more shout outs throughout the lesson, especially as you guys are writing your sentences. So let's just begin, all right? There are 12 different verb tenses that we're going to talk about today. So you may think, well, how did we get to 12? Well, there are 4 aspects in which you were talking about: the simple, the progressive, the perfect, or the perfect progressive. Now, you may hear some people refer to the progressive as continuous. They mean the same thing, either one, whether you want to say the progressive tense or continuous, either one is okay. So we have those 4 aspects. And then the 3 main tenses, which I think everyone is familiar with: the past, the present, and the future. And when we multiply 4 times 3, we get 12. We get 12 different verb tenses. Now, I gave you this just as a reference. I used the verb, the base verb go, to go, and I conjugated it using those 4 different aspects and those 3 main tenses. I'm not going to go over this chart with you. This is, again, just for you to kind of look at and examine, because we are going to talk about each and every one of these verb tenses. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you how when the verb tense is used. I'm going to ask you a question, and then I'm going to give you some example sentences showing you, again, how to use this verb tense, some common ways in which the verb tenses are used. And again, I want you guys to write in the chat so that anybody watching this, they can see all of these wonderful examples of these verb tenses being used. The other thing I would say is that I am going to try and it's going to start with the easiest tenses and then kind of work your way up to the more difficult ones. So it's almost like this is the order in which learners would learn these verb tenses. Now, there are different ways, in different orders in which somebody may learn it, but just in general, these are the ones that I think are the most valuable. I've ordered them in terms of importance and priority. Okay, so here we go. Let's go. We're going to start with the present simple, okay, which is generally used to describe actions in the present that are either habitual or factual. All right, so just keep that in mind, present simple. And I've given you a question that I want you to answer, and I want you to write a complete sentence. All right, for all of these questions, please write in complete sentences. Okay, so my question is, how often do you study English? How often do you study English? Write your answer in the chat, or if you're watching it later, write that in the comments, and I'm going to keep a lookout for some of those comments right there, okay? Ready? So how often do you study English? Here are some example sentences that I would give you, okay? Right here. So I would say the following, all right? We usually play soccer. When you're talking about those adverbs of frequency, always, usually, sometimes, rarely, never, it's often used in the present simple, okay? We usually play soccer. We play. I could say another one like nobody stands up to her. I wanted to throw that that phrasal verb in there. Stand up to someone. If you stand up to someone, it means you're kind of fighting back. You're sticking up for yourself. Usually you would stand up to a bully. So you could say nobody stands up to her, and nobody stands. Remember, subject verb agreement. Then I throw a question in there. A question using the present simple. Do you enjoy watching YouTube? Would be just again a question. Now keep in mind, in this case, watching All right. This is not the continuous tense. Watching is a gerund. All right. You enjoy doing something. So watching is not a verb. It's not in the, it's actually a gerund. So keep that in mind if you're wondering like, wait, why is there an ing in there? And then my final sentence, again, just, I don't know, pick on myself sometimes. Wes doesn't like broccoli. It's true. I know. I'm sure many of you are broccoli lovers out there. I don't want to offend you, but yes, I am not a fan of broccoli. Mostly, I wanted to share that image down there, which I found as part of a meme because it looks like this piece of broccoli is giving someone the finger, and the meme would be like, you know, F you too, broccoli. So I thought that was really funny, and I just wanted to share that picture mostly, which is why I wrote that sentence. So again, some examples in using the present simple. Thank you. Angela, I study English every day. All right. Saeed, I watch your live lessons whenever you hold them. Perfect. Let's see. Angel, I enjoy watching interactive English on YouTube. Thank you, Angel. We really appreciate that. Yelvin, a sentence in the present simple. I don't like broccoli either. Excellent. All right. Great minds think alike. All right. So, Alma, I study English every day. Perfect. Okay, again, these are examples in the present simple. I think this should be pretty easy. Again, it's going to get more difficult because some of the verb tenses we don't often use. Present simple, we use all the time. So let's continue. Moving right along, let's look at the past simple, all right? This is used to describe a finish action in the past. The action is complete. The action is finished. So here's a question to elicit a variety of different answers. This is a common question somebody might ask, and I would ask you, you know, well, hey, what did you do yesterday? Did is in the past tense. What did you do yesterday? Again, I'm identifying a lot of time with the past. You will have those time expressions, those time words like yesterday, last night, last year, and that will tell you, okay, the past simple. So just tell me, write to me in the chat, what did you do yesterday? Tell me. I'm going to look out, use the past tense, and write a complete sentence. That's always important. I always want you guys to practice fully, write a complete sentence. So some of my example sentences would be right here, okay? I'd say, she traveled to Italy a long time ago. So again, I'm referencing the past with a long time ago. If I say she traveled to Italy, she's already been there and she returned. She's already done there. It's a finished action. She traveled to Italy. I bought some wet wipes yesterday. All right, that's a true story right there. So again, yesterday, I'm indicating the time that's in the past. Bought is an irregular verb, so I buy in the present simple, I bought. I bought some wet wipes yesterday. They weren't for me, they were for our little baby girl, Amelia. But yes, I bought some wet wipes yesterday. The next one, this is a question that I think is great because if you did not do something, and maybe you should have done it in the past, but you didn't do it. Like, for example, call someone. Somebody might ask you, hey, why didn't you call? I'm trying to mix some of these examples with questions using the negative so that you can kind of see how this tense is used. Somebody might say, hey, why didn't you call? In this case, somebody should have called in the past. It did not happen. So you might say, why didn't you call? Why didn't you come? Why didn't you join us? All right. So in that case, something did not happen, but maybe it should have. And then we could say, Wes lived in South Korea for 3 years. Another true story. There's a picture of me with some of my students at the university, and I lived in South Korea for 3 years. Annyeonghaseyo to anybody out there who is in Korea watching right now. So let's look at some sentences, all right? What did you do yesterday? That was my question to you, Albert. I managed to create a file that I need to analyze the data. Excellent, all right? You managed to do something. Yesterday, Estella, yesterday I played soccer and spent time with my friends. Perfect. Kia Nguyen, sorry if I mispronounced names. I learned English yesterday. Past simple. Perfect. Lali, yesterday I didn't cook broccoli. Good, good, good on you. Awesome. So again, past simple, you're going to either use the regular past, which would be that ed ending like traveled, or irregular. There are many, many irregular verbs like bought or went. And those you just have to memorize. They're very common. So the next tense that I want to look at is one that is very common, very useful, and it's also talking about the past, which is why we're going to do it next, and that is the present perfect. So even if you see that word, present perfect, it's not just talking about the present, it's really referring to something in the past, but it has a connection with the present. And that's what I would say. It talks about an action in the past at an unspecified time. We don't know when this happened, which has a connection with the present, a connection to the present. And I'll give you an example to show you a little bit more about that in just a moment. So my question to you, in the present perfect, what incredible places have you visited? We are always trying to, learn about some new and cool and amazing places. So that's really why I wanted to ask you. Tell me so that maybe we know where to travel on our next vacation. What incredible places have you visited? Give me, again, practice using the present perfect. You could say, I have been, I have visited, I have gone to. There are many different ways that you could answer this question and talk about some of these incredible places. So let's look at some example sentences. Okay, so present perfect, all right? She has played piano for 6 years. Again, look at how it's constructed. You're going to use the helping verb have plus the past participle, has played. She has played piano for 6 years. Now, what this tells us, when you see for and since, those are two words that are going to indicate, okay, I think I might use the present perfect. She has played piano for 6 years. She started in the past, 6 years ago, and is playing today. That is the connection to the present because she is still playing piano today. The lesson has already begun, okay? The lesson began in the past, but it's still happening right now. It has a connection with the present. But if you're just joining us, thank you. We are talking about all 12 verb tenses. Please stick around, join, and practice your English skills. And the other question that I have, again, just to give you a question, an example of a question in the present perfect, somebody might ask you, hey, where have you been? That is a common question that somebody would want to know that, where were you in the past? But it's an unspecified time. It does not say, it's not talking about, maybe yesterday, last year. It's implying the more recent past. It's not really, in this case, this question would be implying something in the recent past, but not a very specified time. Hey, where have you been? And I could say, Wes has been to China. Again, I didn't tell you when because it's unspecified, but Wes has been to China. All right, present perfect. There's a picture of me in front of the Forbidden City with Chairman Mao staring over my shoulder. Now, one thing that I wanted to point out, because a lot of times that people get confused with these verb tenses is when to use one over the other. And what is the difference? When should I use the past simple and when should I use the present perfect? Because I gave you that example. Remember, I said Wes lived in South Korea for 3 years. And I told you when you see for and it's talking about a period of time, often we use that with the present perfect. So you might be thinking, well, why did you use the past simple then and not the present perfect? Well, one difference is that if I say Wes lived in South Korea for 3 years, it means it happened in the past. It's finished. I lived in South Korea, but I don't live there now. If I use the present perfect and say Wes has lived in South Korea for 3 years, then that means that I still live there now. So that is one difference between the past simple and the present perfect. If it's the past simple, it's finished, it's completed. Remember, the present perfect, it has that connection with the present. Started in the past, but it's still happening now. Like she has played piano for 6 years. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about, what's the difference between these? Some other places. Again, tell me where you guys have been. Maggie says, I have been to Japan. this summer. It was an amazing experience. Keep in mind, I'd say again, when you throw that time in there, this summer, oftentimes it would then be used with the past simple because you're specifying the time. Like I went to Japan this past summer would be a common way. Remember, have been. When you're using the present perfect, often we refer to that unspecified time. We don't know exactly when it happened. Somebody says, I have studied English, Lali, for 2 years. Perfect. Tamar, I've eaten lunch. Okay. All right. Yes, that is the present perfect. We don't know when you ate lunch, but yes. I have been busy with work. Alberto. Perfect. Somebody said, where was it? Let's see. I have been to Turkey. It's a wonderful country. Saeed, great example. Present perfect. Again, it's unspecified. We don't know when. And yes, Turkey is on the list. We really want to visit Turkey. I think we could find some good flights to Istanbul. So yes, that's on the list. Good idea. So after the present perfect, let's move on. We're going to make it. It's going to get a little more challenging, a little more difficult. This one, I think is pretty easy, pretty straightforward, future simple, okay? It describes actions that will happen in the future, and usually it expresses some kind of fact or certainty because you're talking about something that will happen, that you think will happen. You are certain about it. So again, a common question I will ask you, what will you eat tomorrow? All right. I'm kind of curious. I've already told you that, I don't like broccoli, but I want to know, well, what do you guys like? What will you eat tomorrow? Tell me, express certainty and use the future simple. What will you eat tomorrow? That is my question for you guys. Write it in the chat and practice using the future simple. So here are my examples that I have for you. So I could say again, it will rain all this week. In this case, you are expressing that certainty, talking about something that will happen in the future. And we often notice that we use it with that modal will. I will plus the base verb, will rain. In the next sentence, I said, more something stating a fact. If I'm saying, well, hey, the door won't open. All right, it will not open. Again, that's the negative. In this case, you're saying something won't happen in the future. It's not going open, and somebody might just express a fact and say, hey, the door won't open. It's stuck. The door won't open. And then the next one, we will rock you. Okay, bonus points. Which group sings that song? We will rock you. I'm not going to try and sing it for you because I'm a terrible singer and I don't want you guys to leave, but bonus points. Who sings that? We will rock you. And my last question for you right down there. Will you join our community? Our email list, our community, will you join? If you don't already know about it, you can join our email list, access the Secret Fluency Lesson, get some useful and free resources as well as the latest updates. Let me throw a link in there just in case. So again, that's my question to you. Will you join our community? Make that connection with us. That's what we want. If you haven't joined it already, please do so. So let's look at, again, I want to go back and read some sentences. Yes, Mimo, Geraldo, Paul, Lolly, perfect. Queen, yes, Queen is my we will rock you question. Perfect. Gosia, excellent. So what will you eat tomorrow? Geraldo said, Gerardo said, I'll eat pizza. Perfect. Benny said, I will eat a sandwich. Excellent. Perfect. What will you do? Roma said, I will eat vegetables. That is a great way to stay healthy. I think I should eat vegetables tomorrow. Maybe I will. I don't know. We'll see. There's a little uncertainty in that. Maybe. So we've talked about the future. Again, I think it's common. We use it all the time. You understand it. Let's look at the present progressive. And remember I said progressive. Some people might say continuous, present, progressive, present, continuous. It means the same thing. But what it does mean is it refers to an action that is happening right now. It is not complete. It is happening now. Now. So I would ask you, my question to you that I want you to answer, write it in the chat or write it in the comments if you're watching this later on. Where are you sitting or standing right now? You guys are at home watching this. Maybe you're on a bus. Maybe you're standing in a metro. I don't know, but that was my question. I want to know where are you right now? Where are you sitting right now, or where are you standing right now? I'm asking you about now, so you are going to answer using the present progressive. And if you want to see the present progressive in action and know how to answer it, check this out. The phone is ringing. So when we're talking about the progressive tense, we use it with the helping verb to be and the main verb and the ing. Is ringing. You see that ing on the end of ringing because that is how we express that something is happening now. And that's a common sentence you might hear somebody say, like, hey, somebody's phone is ringing. The phone is ringing. Somebody needs to answer it. This is another sentence. The ants are marching one by one. Hurrah, hurrah. We've been watching a lot of just nursery rhymes lately with our little girl, and that was just in my mind. The ants are marching one by one. But again, present progressive. That is what the ants are doing right now. Or a common question that somebody might ask you, which is just, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? Maybe you're doing something that you should not be doing, and somebody say, what are you doing? Or maybe you're talking to somebody on the phone and they just want to know, what are you doing right now? What are you doing? Common question. And down there, again, present progressive, I would say, again, if I'm thinking about right now in that picture, I'd say we are standing in front of the Golden Gate Bridge because we used to live in the San Francisco Bay Area. I would use we are standing. So again, keep in mind the way that you form the present progressive. The helping verb to be plus the base verb plus that ing is ringing, are marching, are standing, okay? So I had asked you guys, where are you guys right now? So let me see, where are you guys? Ricardo, I'm just laying on my bed. Perfect. Tintan, I'm lying on my bed right now while watching your video. Excellent. Buscorn, I'm having dinner and watching your live lesson. Excellent. I'm Gonzalo, I'm sitting in a chair having breakfast. Awesome. This is so cool. Like, just everybody's connected right now at this moment. Angela, I'm standing in my room right now. Perfect. Okay. Again, using that present progressive, it's talking about now. All right. So if the present progressive is talking about the present now, let's look at the past progressive, or the past continuous, as some might call it. It refers to continuous actions at a specific time in the past. That's one way we use it. Or it's talking about a continuous action that were happening when another event occurred. And I will give you some examples talking about those. And I would ask you my question, all right? Again, in this case, I'm asking about a specific time. What were you doing yesterday at 6 p.m.? So yesterday is talking about the past. 6 p.m., that's a specific time. What action were you doing yesterday at 6 p.m.? I want you to write a sentence, an example, using the past progressive. Now, what were you doing yesterday at 6 p.m.? Remember that. Now, let's look at my examples. Again, we're going to form this the same way as the present progressive. The past progressive, you're using the helping verb to be plus the main verb plus ing. The only difference is again, we're talking about the past. So the verb to be is going to be in the past. Last week, this is true. Last week, we were visiting Slovenia. I was with my family. We were visiting Slovenia. Again, we were, the subject and verb must agree. Visiting, I got to put that ing on there. And last week, that is the time. I'm talking about that specific time. So again, you can refer to like yesterday at this specific time. You could say last week, last year, I was doing this certain thing, okay? You can use the past progressive. Now, if we're talking about when we're talking about a continuous action, when another action occurs, like this next example, when I started the lesson, people were talking in the chat. So that is my other point in time. When I started the lesson, that is a point in time. What was happening at that time? People were talking in the chat. That was the continuous action as I started the lesson. People were talking in the chat, okay? And I could say that, again, in this photo, just like this photo just makes me laugh. In this photo, I was laughing with our baby girl. So again, in this case, I'm using that photo. That is my specific time. That is my moment. In this photo, I was laughing with our baby girl. We put her in front of the mirror and she just likes to look at me and she likes to look at herself and just laugh. So it makes me laugh too. So we were all laughing. Now let's look at, again, I asked you what you were doing yesterday at 6 p.m. Okay, let's see what kind of responses. I'm just going to read a few of them. Hong says, or Hang Trong, I was driving and I felt over last month. I'm not sure. You could say, yeah, I was driving yesterday at 6 p.m. EM, I was driving to my home. Perfect. Sahajnuta, I was in a church meeting. Remember, in that case, that's the past simple. Remember, past possessive. You could say, I was meeting with people from my church. In that case, that's the past progressive, was meeting. Romesa, yesterday I was studying. Perfect. Leila, I was practicing English. At 6 p.m., practicing English. Again, perfect. Remember, the verb to be plus that ing. Past progressive. Now let's look at the future progressive. Now we're getting into verb forms that are a little less common. You know, we talked about some of the main verb forms: present simple, past simple, present perfect, present progressive, past progressive. Those are ones that you are going to use, you know, anytime you're speaking English. They are so common. Now we're going to get into ones that are not as common and they may be a little more difficult, the grammar. So the future progressive, it's basically the opposite of the past progressive, but we're talking about the future, refers to continuous actions at a specific time in the future, all right, at a specific time, or actions that will be happening when another event occurs. And my question to you, I couldn't think of any other question. It's just a yes or no question. Will you be joining our community? Remember, I gave you our link to join our community. I'm going to give it to you again. Boom, there it is, just in case you missed it the first time. And I can say, you know, hey, will you be joining our community? I also wanted to use it because that is a question that somebody might ask using the future progressive, like for dinner. Will you be joining us for dinner? Will you be joining us for this? Will you be joining us for that? That is a common question that you might hear somebody using the future progressive. So when we're talking about the future progressive, there's a couple of different parts to it because, again, we're talking about the future, so we're going to use will. Okay? And after will, we follow it with the base verb. So in this case, the progressive uses the helping verb to be. So will be. You're always going to have that. Will be plus the main verb plus ing. Now the first one, maybe it's a little trickier because I put it in the negative. I'd say, you know, I won't be sleeping soundly later tonight. I'm talking about a time in the future, later tonight, and I'd say, you know, I won't be sleeping soundly later tonight. Usually because our little girl wakes up quite often wanting something to eat. She's just a little baby. But I could tell you, you know, I won't be sleeping soundly later tonight. Now, the next one. By the end of the year, this is when we're talking about that other point in time. By the end of the year, that is my point in time, you will be speaking fluently. I think that you guys practice, you practice with us, you work hard. By the end of the year, you will be speaking fluently. There is that form for you, will be speaking. Another point I would say with some of these, like even that second one, I could say, you know, at this time next week, again, point in the future. At this time next week, I'll be doing another live lesson. True story. All right. At this time next week, next Saturday, I'll be doing another live lesson, and I hope you can join me for that lesson. So you often find the future progressive with a lot of these time phrases. By the end of next year, at this time next week, you're specifying that time and then talking about something that will be happening. All right. At this time next week, I'll be doing another live lesson, and I really hope I'll see you guys. So some of you said, just to answer, it was a yes/no question. It was a closed-end question, but Hong said, yes, I will be joining your community. Thank you. Thank you for joining our community. Let's see, some other examples. Lolly, at this time next year, I'll be improving my English. Excellent. I hope you will be improving your English with us. All right, Nelly, next week, I'll be watching your live lesson. Perfect. I look forward to seeing you next week. So again, those are some great examples of using the future progressive, okay? Here we go. All right, present perfect progressive refers to actions that started in the past and have continued to the present. So I think before the present perfect, it has that connection with the present. When we're talking about the present perfect progressive, it's a continuous action. That is the key thing. It's an action that has continued to the present and will likely continue into the future. I will add that to this meaning. So it continues to the present and will likely continue into the future. And I could ask you, again, a question using the present perfect progressive. How have you been spending your free time? And in this case, I'm talking about the more recent future. And you can use these words, those words like lately or recently. When you see those words, oftentimes you think of the perfect tense, like, oh, I need to use the perfect tense. So you could use that in your response. Lately, I've been what? I've been doing what? Recently, I've been doing what? All right, let me know in the chat. That's my question. How have you been spending your free time? All right, what have you been doing? Let's look at some examples, okay? So I'd say I've been waiting for hours, all right? Present perfect progressive. I've been waiting for hours. And this is another case where it's like, well, how do I know? When should I use the present perfect or when should I use the present perfect progressive? In some cases, it has a very similar meaning, but sometimes there's just a small little nuance, the difference. So for example, maybe let's say you're waiting for a bus and you're telling somebody, well, in the present perfect, I've waited for hours, okay? That's perfectly fine. I've waited for hours. I think it's a little more appropriate and specific. This is where we get into like fluency of really expressing these small nuances. That people would use the present perfect progressive more often. I have been waiting for hours because it's continued up until the present and it's an action that will likely continue into the future. It makes me think like, if somebody says, I've waited for hours, it makes me think, well, perhaps the bus has now arrived. Perhaps like you've waited for hours and now the bus is here and you're going to get on it. Again, there's not enough information. We don't know. I'm just talking about how you interpret some of these nuances between these verb tenses. But if you use, I've been waiting for hours, that tells me, okay, if you're waiting for a bus, the bus is not here yet and you're probably going to keep waiting. If we want to use it for a question, has it been raining all day? All right, again, has it been raining all day? You don't know if this is something that started in the past, has continued to the present, and will continue into the future. I forgot to mention the construction. So remember, we're talking about the present perfect, so we're using have. We're talking about the progressive, so we're using the past participle of the verb to be. So I have been, the verb, and ing. Okay, so again, as you get into these more challenging verb tenses, the grammar does become a little trickier. So again, you're using I have, he has, the past participle of the verb to be, which is been, have been, has been, and then the verb plus ing. I've been waiting, or a question, has it been raining? I hope that is easy to follow. And my last example, again, just using us as an example, I could say, we've been teaching on YouTube for 2.5 years. That's true. We started the channel in February of 2017, so I could say as of now, we've been teaching on YouTube for 2.5 years, and because I'm using the present progressive, it's continued up until now, and it's going to continue into the future. Especially because I told you that we will do another live. At this time next week, I will be doing another live lesson, so it will continue into the future. So let's look at some of your examples, okay? I had asked you guys the question, how have you been spending your free time? Okay. And somebody said, Estella, I've been spending my free time watching your videos. Thank you, Estella. Excellent. Esther, I've been trying for months to win the race. Okay, maybe, yeah, you're involved in some kind of race, competition. I've been trying to do this for months. Zakia said he has been writing a poem for 5 hours. Perfect, okay? Present, perfect, progressive. Started in the past, continues to the future, and will likely continue into the future. All right, continues to the present and will continue in the future. I've been teaching, wait a second, I lost it. I've been teaching biology for 26 years. Again, when you see that for and since, oftentimes you use the perfect tense, okay? Even though that's not always the case, but again, when you talk about for a duration of time or since a specific time, you often use it with a perfect tense. He has been working for 8 years. Excellent. You guys are rocking these examples. Perfect. So I also wanted to tell you guys, again, if you guys like what we do here at Interactive English, want to show us some love, want to show us some support, you can check out our Patreon page. I will leave a link in the description down below, and I will also leave a link right here in the chat if you guys want to check that out. It's another good way to connect with us. We have some cool rewards up there. And again, yeah, feel free. Check that out. Now we're going to get into more verb tenses that are more difficult and probably, less commonly used. Even though you may hear this when you're watching a TV show, watching a movie. I'm not telling you that you should not use these, but this is a little more advanced grammar, these verb tenses. So we're talking about the past perfect. And the past perfect, again, the perfect tense, it refers to two actions in the past and shows that one happened before the other. So remember, the present perfect, again, we're talking about an action in the past that has a connection to the present. The past perfect is an action in the past that has a connection with another action in the past. So for example, again, my question, this is not a good question. I just couldn't think of anything, but I'd say, okay, before you left the house this morning, what had you eaten? All right, just try to practice using the past perfect, even though I think it's common that somebody would answer and respond using the past simple. But that I couldn't think of any other question. Go see, I already said I had eaten scrambled eggs before I left the house. Excellent, perfect. Thank you for that wonderful example of the past perfect. So here are some of my examples, okay? When you knocked on the door, again, that happened in the past. I had already left for work, all right? When you knocked on the door, I had already left for work. Keep in mind, oftentimes you're using the past perfect with these adverb clauses of time, all right? Something happened because, again, we're talking about two events in the past, all right? Something happened before the other. So when I knocked on the door, all right, well, what happened before that? I had already left for work. So the event that happened before is the one in which you will use the past perfect. And again, the past perfect tense, we're talking about the helping verb, or have, all right? And the past, which is had, plus the past participle. So had plus the past participle, had left. Now, again, if you're talking about some of the differences between past perfect and past simple. Now, if we change that to the past simple and I said, when you knocked on the door, I left for work. That makes me think, well, that those two things happened at about the same time. Right when you knocked on the door, I left for work. But in this case, that's not what we want to explain. You want to say that this thing happened before. I had already left for work. I could say, she felt great yesterday. That is my point in the past. Because she had slept well the night before. Again, she felt great yesterday. What happened before that? That's my past perfect. She had slept well the night before. And then this last one, all right, I just look ridiculous. I thought I'd share that with you. When this picture was taken, all right? At that point in the past, I had not fixed my hair. I hadn't fixed my hair. You can use that contraction, had not, hadn't. I hadn't fixed my hair, okay? Let's see, what else? Do you have any others? I asked you guys about eating before you left the house. Anything? Tomorrow, I had already eaten a fried egg before my mom came home. All right, perfect. Again, you're talking about those 2 points in the past. And remember, the one that happened the earliest, the one that came before, that is the past perfect. That's the one that you want to use the past perfect with. Let's look at the next verb tense, which is the past perfect progressive. Okay, now we're really getting into it. Refers to an action that started in the past and continued to another point in the past. So remember, 2 events in the past, but the one continued to that other event. All right, so I could ask you a question. Had you been waiting long before this lesson started? Okay, so again, give me an answer in the past perfect, using the past perfect progressive. I had been waiting for what? What amount of time before the lesson started? So again, you often find the past progressive with these other dependent clauses when you talk about, well, when, before, after, while. There's usually a dependent clause which is going to tell you that one point in the past, and then you will refer to the next thing. So for example, when you interrupted our conversation, that is something that happened in the past. Interrupted. When you interrupted our conversation, again, that's the dependent clause. Well, what was happening before it and continued? He had been talking nonstop. All right, that's just an example. Hopefully, maybe you can put a picture in your mind too, thinking about some situation. You know, when you interrupted our conversation, he had been talking nonstop. Okay, he started in the past and continued up until the point when you interrupted the conversation. Past perfect progressive. When I started this lesson, people had been talking in the chat for several minutes. All right. When I started this lesson, that's my point in the past. People had been talking in the chat for several minutes. They started several minutes beforehand and continued to the point that I started the lesson. So again, it's easy. Try to think about it like a timeline. Again, past perfect progressive, 2 points in the past, one continues up until the other one. All right. Karim said, I had been waiting for a while when this lesson started. Okay, sorry to keep you waiting, Karim. Kara said, I had been waiting for 10 minutes before the lesson started. Excellent. Excellent use of the past perfect progressive. Had been, main verb, ing. Now let's look at the future perfect, okay? These are tenses that are not as common, but the future perfect refers to 2 actions in the future and shows that one happened before the other. So the idea is the same as the past perfect, except we're taking the 2 events and we're moving them to the future. So, for example, my question to you, and I want you to answer using the future perfect. What will you have accomplished before this weekend is over? Right now, I think for most of you, it's Saturday. It's still Saturday. But before the weekend is over, all right, on Sunday, what will you have accomplished? Okay, so that is my point in the future, is before the weekend's over. Now I'm asking you about an action before that. What will you have accomplished before the weekend is over? That's my question. Write your answer in the chat or the comments using the future perfect. So here are some other examples. I started out with a question right here. Will you have eaten when we meet? Will you have eaten when we meet later this evening? So perhaps we're having a conversation. I am going to meet you later tonight, and maybe I want to know, hey, should we go get dinner? So I might ask you, hey, will you have eaten when we meet later this evening? Later this evening is the point in time in the future, and will you have eaten? That would have happened before. I don't know if it will have happened, which is why I'm asking a question, but I'm asking, will you have eaten this morning? Will you have, I'm sorry, I can't even speak anymore. Will you have eaten when we meet later this evening? So again, Future perfect, we have that we're using the future will, all right, plus that have, because we're talking about the perfect tense, will have, plus the past participle. If you're wondering about how this is construction, will have plus the past participle. Will have eaten, will have gone, will have danced, will have played. And my other example, by the time you go to bed tomorrow night, by the time you go to bed, I will have changed several diapers. Many of you know we have a little baby girl, so this is a true story. I will have changed several diapers, and that is just a goofy picture of me holding up some diapers, and those are not the diapers that we use. We don't use those diapers, of course. That's just an illustration. So again, I asked you guys the question, what will you have accomplished before the weekend is over? Mono check one saying, I will, you would say, I will have read the book before my vacation ends. All right. I will have read a book before my vacation ends. That's what that's the correct construction you want. So Lali, I will have done, remember the past participle, I will have done my homework before Tuesday. Before Tuesday arrives, I will have done my homework, all right? Mrs. Reluctant, I will not have accomplished much. Okay, I appreciate your candor. That is a great example sentence. Thank you for sharing with us. I will not have accomplished much. It's a direct answer to that question. Let's look at the next one, the future perfect progressive. It refers to an action that will start in the future and continue to another point in the future. Again, we're talking about those two actions in the future, but one's going to continue to the other one. It has that relationship, that connection with the future action. And once again, this is definitely more advanced grammar, the future perfect progressive, because we use them a lot with those dependent clauses, before, after, when, while, by the time, like my question. By the end of the month, how long will you have been living in your place? I want you to practice using this tense. Now, it doesn't have to be exactly the end of the month. You can talk about the end of the year, the end of the month, like I will have been living here for how long, okay? I just want you to practice. So again, I'm talking about how long will you have been living in your place. If you live in an apartment, if you live in a home, by the end of some time, all right, how long will you have been living there? All right, try to give me a sentence in the chat, in the comments, using the future perfect progressive and answering that question. By the end of some time, I will have been living here for whatever amount, all right? That would be the correct construction of that sentence. Here are some more examples, all right? That's a typo, once. It should say, once it gets to 4:30, all right? It's almost 4:30 for me right now. Right now it's 4:19, but once it gets to 4:30 p.m., I will have been working for 6.5 hours, all right? 4:30 is in the future. We're not there yet. But the other point, I will have been working, okay? Because I'm working now. I'm going to continue working. If it gets to that point and I'm still working, I will have been working for 6.5 hours. Saturdays are kind of a busy day for me. I know for many of you, it's the weekend. For me, it's a bit of a busy day. And then the last one, by 2067, all right? That is that point way in the future, all right? We will have been teaching on YouTube for 50 years. That will be our golden anniversary. 2067, we will have been teaching on YouTube for 50 years. And I hope all of you will still be studying with us in 2067. Don't know if I'll make it there because in 2067, I will be 89 years old. All right. That's a long ways from now. So let me see. Do you guys have any examples? about where you will. Diamansa says, by the end of the month, I will have been living where I am now for my whole life. All right, I will have been living here for my entire life. Okay, excellent. Saddam, by the end of this month, I will have been living here for 2 months. Excellent. Great use of the future perfect progressive. Rohan, by the end of the year, I'll have been living here for 16 years. Excellent. Ramasa, by the end of this month, I will have been playing games for 1 hour. Okay. Sayed, where is it? Where'd it go? I will have been living in my place for 3 years by the end of this month. Excellent. Great use of the future perfect. So, whoa, we covered a lot today. Those are all 12 verb tenses. I hope that the lesson was easy to follow, easy to understand. I hope you got some good practice in, because that's what we want. I want you guys to interact with our lessons and practice and practice and practice, especially because next week we are going to do a live lesson, which is going to be a quiz. And guess what that quiz will be about? Yes, it will be about the 12 verb tenses. So now that you have learned the verb tenses, next week I am going to do a quiz live lesson using these different verb tenses. So I hope that you will join me for that. Thank you guys so much for watching this lesson. I hope that you learned something new. Please, if you haven't, usually I ask you guys already, hit that like button if you enjoy learning with us and enjoy what we do here at Interactive English. Show us some love. Hit that like button. Write to us in the comments. We love hearing from you guys. And again, you can check us out on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. It is another way to connect with all of us. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Rumesa, Oda, Baset, Angela, Diamansan, Rumesa, Lali, Christina, Sanaz, Camila. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. So long.